Okay, so we are live to something that I am now calling Vantage Point Conversations. Again, I mentioned this the other day. Someone gave me some very good branding advice. So I'm doing 2 of these a week. I'm gathering momentum, and someone said I should put a brand behind it so people remember what I'm doing and know to come and find me. So today's live guest is, I'm going to say it, Fadila. Fadila? Am I saying it
Yes,
right?
perfect.
So I know your surname. I am no way going to pronounce it. I'm going to leave that to you because, yeah, I would mess it up. So do you want to just tell us
Yes,
what it is?
Bouzahzah, simply.
Okay, I would have absolutely messed that up. So, Fadila, would you mind just spending? This is my opening monologue for all of my lives. I don't introduce my guest because I don't think I would hit all the high notes and all the interesting things that you probably want to mention. So, would you just mind taking a few moments, as long as you want, just giving some background of who you are and some context, and maybe the context leading to sort of this conversation, and yeah, and we jump off from there.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me. And second, I just want to advise you that I am half Italian. Then it's, we like to talk, and hopefully my introduction won't be too long. But okay, I don't really like to start with I am, because it feels like a box and defining me. But I will, just for the purpose of this interview, I will just say, I am from my father Algerian, Sicilian from my mother. I am born in France, and I'm living in Luxembourg for 32 years. And then, like a lot of people in Luxembourg, I have 23 years working in finance. That's not something that I really choose, but let's say this pathway chose me. And at the age of 48 years old, I decided to just stop with that and start a new career. That's where I am now. And then for me, it was just a transition, a career transition. But it was, of course, much more complicated because there was, I underestimate, this kind of transition and changes, because, of course, it's just not like, especially in coaching, it's not just changing career. And then as soon as, I close my chapter in finance, I have created with a lot of enthusiasm Gioia Life Coaching. Gioia in Italian means joy. And then since then, I have to say that I had clients, of course, but most of the time, the coaching was more for myself. I was coaching me and to become the coach that I want to be for other people. And yeah, here I am, and interesting. I'm really interested about the subject, about
Oh,
the
absolutely.
yes.
Thank you. There's so many sort of parts. So when I was looking at your profile, it said the what was it? Couscous, spaghetti, and baguette girl. And I was like, I wonder what that is. And then I was like, oh, okay, it's because of all your backgrounds. But I assume you don't eat all those things at once, or is that your brand? How did that come about? I thought it was really fun.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's only recently, so far when I try to be clear about, who I wanted to help in my coaching, I thought about, exactly what I made this career transition, and then helping other women doing the same thing. But it's just like I would say a few months ago, there was a friend of mine. We had a discussion where, I was again mentioning about the difficulty in a way to become the coach that I want to be, because I know that below the surface, there is a lot of inherited patterns from the my family, my roots. This beautiful mix is as well something very complicated to manage. And that's my friend who just said, but Fadila, you don't think that this is where you have a voice, and maybe even an authority? And then I was really blocking. And then I start to look, because I know when, for me, every time there is big gaps, it means that there is an energy that is blocked. Then, if I'm doing this job, then let's do it until the end. And I was trying to face that. And suddenly, I used to describe myself like the couscous spaghetti, but I never really use it as my brand, because in a way, I don't know, I felt like it was still the gap. And then when I start to just look deeper the surface, there was so many things that just pop out, and yeah, this name just come out like so powerfully, and I was like, I was not comfortable with that before, but now it makes me laugh. It makes me feel that there is a healing taking place. I want to use it for my brand, and it's my identity by the end, and that's the way I used
It's,
it.
but I love it because it's the sort of thing that people will remember, and it's actually very good in terms of not describing who you are, because like you said, you don't want to be put in a box, but it's this funny thing that there's just this playful way of looking at things, and I think that's so. I've done a lot of work on myself, and I commend you for the work that you're doing, because you're helping clients, but you're also helping yourself, and I think sometimes there's this misconception in that people that are still going through things and trying to work through things can't help others. But in my experience, I've actually found that they were the most impactful in my life, because they've actually gone through it. They didn't learn something that they then just pass on. It's actually they've felt it, they've lived it, and then they can resonate so much better with me, and then they understood, or they could get close to where I was, and I found that so useful, rather than we I always talk about this, but with social media we have a lot of the shiny sort of, oh yeah, I follow this framework, I will absolutely get you these results, and everything looks perfect, but behind the scenes, actually, it doesn't work that way. We're all human. We're all going through something, and so people have complimented me on how far along I've come, etc. But it was a journey, and there is no way in the world that I feel that I'm at this place, and I don't know if it's utopia or perfection that people think it is. I wake up and I struggle some days, and I shout at the kids, and some days I have got no idea what I'm doing, or I've done something wrong, and that's okay, and that's human, and that's part of the conversations that I want to have here, because it's not sort of lifting the lid and sort of saying, oh look, everyone's not okay, but it's actually going against this perfect shiny version, because I think people are trying to measure themselves up against that, and they're making themselves miserable. For me, I don't want to live in a negative world, but everything's not all perfect, and people will say to me, oh, you've got a great thing. Yeah, I have, but God, it's taken me a long time to get there, and I do wake up in a bad mood or think that things have gone 3 steps backwards. So I like it when people like you come and have these conversations and are open and honest about that. I think that's a genuine human thing. So first of all, congratulations for that. That was a long monologue of me talking, but I think it's so important in today's world. So yeah, do you feel that? Do you feel there's this shiny side? Is that?
Yeah. Even for me, as a coach, and that's what a few times I wanted. I was not even able to understand. I got the certification, the coaching certification, and then I put like a kind of standard, feeling like what I have to offer is a finite product. Then I need to do all the work on myself before I do help others. But of course, it's impossible, because, as you said, we are human beings, and you'll never finish. And that's that's of course what I call a program, like the sense of we're never enough. And that's something that I discover, thanks God, because otherwise I would have never dare to coach other people. And that's the beauty of what we are doing, because a lot of people, they reminding me that you don't need to be at the end of the tunnel, because who wants to follow someone that that is so far away, you're totally disconnected. While, if you just putting a lamp just a few steps in front of the person, enough for them to see their own steps, that's just more than enough. And personally, I would rather trust someone, a coach that is doing the job and that is able to tell me, what you're going through, I understand it, because I am as well still living that. Of course, now I know how to help myself, how to hold space and etc. But I got it, and that's just coaching is supposed to. I mean, we are we need to serve the client. We're not here just to shine and just show that we are totally perfect, and that would be very intimidating, I think, as well.
Yeah, I've actually seen that quite a lot. There's a few people on these lives, and their conversations have been, that they feel that they're only maybe a few steps ahead of the other people, and that for them it always felt that they didn't know enough to help the people. But it's exactly what you said for me. If you're a few steps ahead, or you've been through something, those few steps might have taken a couple of years to get through. It's not like, oh yeah, I did this on Tuesday and now I'm okay. But that being able to resonate with your client, to see who they are and what they're going through, and to be able to go, yeah, I absolutely understand it, that can really move things a lot quicker. Because like you say, if we think that someone's up here, it can be very, I found it in myself. I've done a load of courses and coaching in my time, and these people are offering so many things, and they go, yeah, just follow this system. And I've followed that system, and to be honest, they know what they're talking about. But the reality is, I had to deal with a load of stuff like emotions, issues, etc. down here, and I really needed someone just to go, like, come down to my level. And I don't necessarily like levels, but it's easy for people to understand. But to come and go, okay, Colin, you're doing this really well, but you're probably struggling over here. But do it in a way that didn't make me feel silly, or play to any of my insecurities. Just see me for where I was, and just go, yeah, look here, let's just get you to the next step. And I think, I've done so many courses and things like that over the time, and I've probably spent quite a lot of money. I probably don't even want to add it up, because that would scare me. But, they've all been aspirational here. And I found oftentimes, they'll give me something, but the work I needed to do was on myself. I could do all of these things, but in trying to do these things, these are maybe tasks or things, it was more around setting up my own business. I found that, it was heavy, like something simple, just, I'm going to give you an example, setting up a website. People go, yeah, you can do it in 5 minutes. When I got to do it, I'm quite technically able. When I was doing it, I was like, whoa, I've got to make a decision over what font to use, or what my brand is, what my heading, etc. And I was like, okay, there's inner work that needs to be done, things internally, rather than just that external stuff. And I think for me, it just magnified that. And I could have really done with someone just close by, could understand, and just go, yeah, look, I got you. And so I think, for those people that think they need to be know-it-all at this stage, to help people, absolutely not. I think it's actually, sometimes you're so distant from who you're trying to help that you can't resonate. So
Yes, totally. Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, exactly. And it's beautiful what you describe with the website, because it shows that you can have the best coach, the best strategy. But that was my problem. I was, before I was becoming myself a coach, I was coached by so many people, because I used to think that, they will help me. I could feel I had a problem that I could not even name clearly. I just knew that something was blocking me, and I was trying to find the answer outside of me. And then by the end, I understand that you can have the best coach, but if they don't help you to already start with realizing that you are in a box, what I call this inherited box pattern. We all, have the impression that this box is defining you, if you're not even aware, of that box, then how can someone outside of you can just help you to change inside? Because you're not even aware that it's not the real you. You see, and that's the work. I'm so passionate now that I know, all about that I'm aware of even more and more my box, and it's becoming more visible. I understand exactly what you said, that the things outside the website can be very beautiful, but what about the heart, the content, what is there? What do you want to do? That's the most important part. By the end, that what you want to do, it's not only just a shining object. And that's the same with us, with a human being. We have so much potential, and then it's hidden, and we're not even aware of it. And of course, then that's why, for me, when I used to think, same as you, that I needed to have to know more, to do more courses. Nothing wrong with learning, because we have to develop, we have to grow, etc. But imagine if you want to just learn on top of a sense of identity that is, I am not enough.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want. You will never, be able to just be enough for yourself. And then the information that you will get will just be like, store somewhere here, but you will never use it.
Yeah, it's strange you say that, because over the last, I don't know, it's been a journey, but I would say I've made quite a lot of progress. I don't know, I'd say that the last 6 weeks, I've rather than look externally for not validation necessarily, but I've started doing the inner work. I've started to understand that I'm good where I am and understand myself, and try to be kinder, especially with the words that go on up here. And I've said this before, but just changing a word from oh, that was stupid, to oh, that was silly, can really change how I see myself and how I show up in being with the kids, being on video, wherever it is. And I think so. What really resonated with what you just said there is that I think for a long time I felt this, I'm not enough or insecure, and I think I was just trying to wrap a business around that and thinking that was going to give me my identity, or that was going to give me the thing that I wanted. And then it's a very powerful revelation to know that actually the work is inside. And I've done therapy before, and we can touch on that if you want, but I've done a lot of stuff, and this is going back sort of 10 years now. But you have to start inwards, and because otherwise you're just layering on top of it, and I think you're always going to feel that sort of uncomfortableness in it, whatever way that we see it. But even if you manage to get success and do that business, you still haven't solved the problem inside. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. I really believe, and I think we're looking outside, trying to validate who we are, etc. So I'm really glad you said that, because it sort of gave me goosebumps, because it's very timely into to where I am. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Colin, what you are describing, just want to remind you that we have so many people who have this pattern that I am not enough. And it looks like, according to statistic, it looks like even more women, we are making more, when we're not able to do something, we are more making a story that, this is because of who we are. And more than men, obviously, and that's explained by even by science, and even history, let's say. But apparently, women. That's why. That's the reason why I would say the type of coaching that I am doing is probably more addressed to women than for men, because men, they can say, okay, if you are maybe an exception, Colin, and it looks like your emotional intelligence is maybe higher, or you're more, open to your feminine principle, if I can call it this way. But it looks like men, if you don't know how to do something, you simply think that it's because of your competence. Then you just need to learn, While a woman, she will just make like a story that this is because of who she is. And it's, it creates so much shame. She won't never talk about that. And there is, on the coaching that I did that saved really my life, I have to say, that is called feminine power transformational coaching. It means what it means, but as soon as I was starting, for me, it was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I was searching for. I didn't know what I was searching for my whole life. And through this coaching, now I got it. The problem is not me. The problem is my sense of identity and what I think, is possible from this sense of identity. And a lot of women, if they don't know that, they will just carry on to wear this sense of shame and lacking, and without knowing that their story does not define them. And that's so interesting. But yeah, just
that's really interesting. I think I want to say from a male perspective, because I do men even get that? When you explain that to men, do they even understand that's the struggle that women would be going through?
Mm-hmm. Can you want me to explain?
No.
Sorry.
From a male's perspective,
yes.
So when you explain to men this concept, do men understand that? Or I guess if it's even difficult for women maybe to understand that something's going on, it's even harder from a man's perspective?
Depends, of course, the man. But a man with what I will call a very strong masculine power, yes, because it's explained, and I don't want to lose too much time on that. But very quickly, it looks like the way our brain is made for. I mean, the way our brain for women and men are working is different, simply because it's explained like when they were hunting for food, the men had to take risk. Then there was like they had to go, and while women, they had to be more the one not taking risk, and etc. And it looks like today men, of course they have less this feminine principle developed, because it's explained, by the history of, their ancestor. And that's why it makes men, okay, if he needs to do something, he will take more risk. But a woman, she does not have that. She will be more, there is more the sense of safety and etc. that is developed. There is other, of course, aspect that probably with the modern time, in order for the woman to feel like in the work environment be equal to men, we had to unfortunately cut. It's not that developed anymore, but this feminine principle, I mean, this sense of identity, so far I can tell that men don't really understand what I'm talking about, with some exception, of course.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to explain that, because I think we often think that we exist in this world today, right now, and I've had a lot of conversations recently with people that can explain why we are, because whilst we seem to have evolved in many ways, our brains are still wired for the ways that we used to live, obviously a long time ago. We haven't adapted because we seem to think that we adapt as quick as computers and stuff like that, and we grow, but oftentimes there's a lot of things that are hardwired into us to think a certain way or to see. And I've had many interesting conversations, and it's great to understand that a fundamental level. Just okay, if you can go back far enough and go, okay, you can explain it. It doesn't not necessarily excuse it, but when you understand maybe where the origins of some of these things come from, you can go, oh, okay, that makes sense. And for me, it's like, oh, okay, when I'm feeling or thinking something that seems very random, I'm like, oh, okay, why is that? And if you can trace it back, you go, oh, okay, this is how it used to be. And yeah, we can evolve. We can. I know you can retrain your brain in many ways, but that takes time. It's not, I know there's hypnosis, etc., and you can do some things, but other things are very hardwired into us, and it takes a long time to
Yes.
either reconnect that with different ideas, different beliefs, etc. But there are some fundamental things that we just haven't evolved to sort of grasp in the new world.
Yes, it's proven now even by science, and I think we're living really an unprecedented time because we have access to so many information. And can you imagine, even our parents or even our grandparents, they were driven by the same thing as we. Of course, they were living, more on the survival because they went through wars and etc. It's just different time, but still, it's so, for me, it's the key to freedom, to be aware of all that. And as you said, I made a mistake to try to understand more in details, but I think, it was something necessary for me to get free. And then now, I feel like, okay, then now fine, let's close the chapter. I know where it's come from. Now I feel like I am in the present time. How can I just be more present? But that's so key. And we hear now, that our brain is not here to help us to evolve, but just to keep us safe. But that's true. It's just, and then it's important, as a human being to know these kind of things, and to be before you start your own evolving journey, because otherwise, the same as me, if I would have just not been open and start to just be aware and searching for answers, I will just hit the same wall, and then of course the sense of myself was really not so nice. Then that's the key for freedom.
Yeah, I think it takes courage to sort of stop. You know, I know you talked about being in the finance world for a long time, and I think, when I started this, it was these conversations. A lot of it was about work, and I've stepped away from the corporate world myself, and I think there are good things about the corporate world, and it gave me some experience and some exposure. But it can be very busy, and we are as guilty as anything to making our lives even busier and filling it up with things that don't serve us, etc. But I think in that it's very brave to sort of step away from the corporate world. Oftentimes, I know it's a bit of an illusion, but we think there's safety in it. That you're going to get paid and you're going to show up, and that's safe. You don't have to think about anything. I would argue that, and that's probably a whole different conversation to have. But just to be able to step away from it and see what actually patterns are playing out in yourself, in society, and in cultures. We'll touch on cultures in a second, because that's kind of one of the things that we're really here to talk about. But I think that's really brave to do it, because I found, so I'm from the UK, but I moved to Luxembourg 10 years ago. Prior to that, when I was in London working, I got the opportunity to travel to different locations. One of the biggest cultural shifts for me was going to India. So my job was outsourced to India, and I actually took my job out there, and that was such an eye opener to me from so many perspectives. I'd lived my whole life in England. I'd gone on holiday, maybe to Spain, maybe Europe as far afield, and then I went to India, and my senses were just blown away just from the ride from the airport to the hotel. It was just a whole different world. I'd had a long flight, so I was a bit but I remember going, oh, this is like sensory overload. And then I started to work with the guys in the office, and it's so strange when you are in London, you think that you're at the center of the universe, and you think that you can, the words coming out of your mouth, people are going to listen to and follow your instructions. And then when you travel somewhere else and see how they operate, the cultures, the hierarchies, the things that are not expressed, that not no one writes down on paper, no one explains to you, until you physically go there and experience it and immerse yourself in it, you have no idea what you're doing. And you might as well just be speaking on mute because you don't understand. And until you understand cultures, and I only barely scratched the surface, but what I realized was, oh, okay, you have to, if I say speak a different language, that seems a bit obvious or a bit wrong, but you need to understand what's going on, what's, you know, what actually, what things are behind the scenes going on, what are at play. And I found that fascinating because then I would come back. So I'll give you, it's a very stereotypical idea that in the UK, people thought people from India weren't very well educated. And, you know, you just kind of grow up with that. It's a very bad stereotype. I get that. I went out to India and I'm like, Jesus, these guys blow everyone I know away in the UK. They're training, they're learning, they've got all these degrees. And I was like, oh man, like these are so smart people and they really get it. They operate differently in a different way, and there's quite a hierarchy, etc. And you know, I'm talking about India just because that's where I went, and I only scratched the surface. But there's so much, but we don't talk about it or we don't know about it, and especially from England. You know, we're quite naive in some ways of thinking, you know, again, we're the center of the universe, and you know, that's how, you know, if it works there like that in England, then it works the same everywhere else. So yeah, so I mean, let's dive into the culture side from you. What's your, I guess, what's your take on it all, being from all these different places and obviously moving?
For me, what is interesting is like already when I was, you know, I told you I am born in France, I was raised in France, and I left France when I was 23 years to move to Luxembourg. Then at that time, you know, I didn't know, but I had three worlds inside of me. I didn't need to travel, let's say. And to be honest, you know, I was not, of course, I was, again, it's a question of awareness. Then I was not aware until, you know, that it was a gap, let's say, that it was quite confusing. But the sense, you know, just to give you an idea, is just like I felt like not belonging to any world. Then, you know, France was my country because I am born there. But, you know, already with an Arabic name, when you say even outside of France, even now, you know, when I'm saying I am French and people are looking at me when I say my name a bit like, but you're not really French. And, you know, I even learn to already find a kind of excuse or explanation to justify, you know, why, you know, I am French. Then just to give you an idea, and then you have to as well understand that not only there was this difficulty with the culture, but there was as well different religion. Then my father comes from a Muslim religion, even though, you know, he was not really practicing. But my mother, Sicilian, then like Catholic until really the boots, if I can say, and then already, you know, inside her family, we as kids, you know, we were a bit like seen like we're different. Then to be honest, it was probably, now with perspective, I understand that definitely these gaps brought me where I am today. That's for sure. Why, you know, searching, I mean, doing this transformational work, talking about identity, it's only recently, you know, that I realized that it's only because already deep inside, I think that on day one, I was already wondering who I was, you know, question that you don't really ask yourself if you coming, you know, you're living in a country where both of your parents are coming from, where you have they have the same religion. I think it's just, you know, it was something that I saw more like a limit. And when I moved to Luxembourg, you know, I was feeling a bit of, by the end now, I am really a foreigner in the middle of foreigners. Now you can call me foreigner because I am a foreigner. And I thought, that it could just give me the peace that I needed with that. And I through my work, I see that again, wherever you go, by the end, these patterns are inside of you. And if you're not aware, they will impact every area of your life. And you can, have like me in Luxembourg, having a sense that, okay, fine, now it's clear I am a foreigner. I underestimate that there was limitation that impacted my career, me as a woman. Even when I made this transition, into entrepreneurship, you have to imagine my father. He was an operator, very simple, humble guy. He never went to school. I mean, that's just things that you don't really realize. But when you are creating something that can be outside of what I call this box, that's where it hits you. You're hitting the wall, and then you're realizing, okay, if you just stop there and you don't want to go further, you can just say, okay, you know what, these things outside of what I want to create, it's not for me because I'm not done for that. But what if it's just the idea you have about yourself, this sense of, box, and it's only you who created this box, and it's only you who can remove the wall by the end. Then, yeah.
That's there's so much in that I think is beautiful, because I think when you were talking, I was thinking about my parents. So I've tried to explain to them what I'm doing here, what my job is, and it doesn't really, they don't really get it, because they come from a time where my dad worked in an office for all of his life. Works very hard, but life is very different. And I think when I moved away from the UK, I realized how much my parents' beliefs and thoughts were impacting me. Even though I was in another country, I still wanted to honor their, that they'd done a good job, and that, I was a good guy, and, I could earn money and I was safe. And it took me many years to sort of move away from that. And it's very strange, because I felt almost ashamed to. So I was made unemployed a while ago, and I told my parents, but there's this sense of almost shame, this uneasiness, because they would worry. And again, starting out and doing this, it isn't something, they didn't have the opportunities that I've got, and technology and things have changed quite a lot. And I think, as you said, so, I've had to fight my own fears, I think, starting a lot of this. Often they're very small steps that you have to find to go forward. I've made steps in the wrong direction, thinking that's what I wanted. I think if you keep making steps, it's not that you go that way and come back, it's you go, but you take a little move to the right or to the left. But I think within all of that conversation and explaining to my family, even with some of my friends back in England, yeah, it's quite difficult. And they're kind of invisible. I mean, don't get me wrong, my family and friends are happy for me, but it's hard to explain like what I'm trying to do, especially sometimes when you don't know yourself. I think that's so I wanted to actually reference it earlier, and I didn't. And I think when I started these conversations, I didn't have a vision of where I wanted to go, where most people would say, yeah, you need to have a vision, you need to have a goal. And this was kind of born out of frustration, because I was trying many things and it didn't work. And I thought I was very good at conversations and I liked connecting with people. And I said to myself, I'm just going to do 2 of these a week for a year, and then just see where that goes. So actually, I had no forward vision. I was just looking at the ground and going, do the thing that I like to do currently. And then actually what's happened, the more conversations that I've had with people, I can see things emerging. People giving me feedback, and even things. When people give me feedback and they say, "Oh, you should do it this way," and I'm like, "No, no, no." So I'm trying to connect with myself, trying to receive feedback and not push it away and see it as an insecurity about myself. But all of that is basically like being in a dark room, and just following your heart forward and just going, okay, I'm going to trust that the next step, as I'm stepping there, is going to actually be something at some sort of solid ground and moving forward. And strangely enough, I like it. It can be quite scary. But I think if you do lean into it, I think it's very powerful. And I've spent a lot of time disconnecting from my brain and reconnecting with my body. And my body seems to be able to tell me, okay, just lean into it, especially when it doesn't make sense. So again, I've talked about this quite a lot, but I'm financing this whole thing myself, and I got some money come through, and that doesn't make a lot of business sense. Everything that all the business gurus will tell you, I'm doing the opposite, not intentionally, but I've felt into it, and I said, no, I'm gonna do this my way. I've cut out all the shiny things, and it really works, and I seem to be able to move faster. But coming from a guy that grew up in the UK, very structured, worked in corporate, was told all the time what to do, how to do it, just almost follow instructions. You're under an illusion that you have autonomy over your job, but you don't really. To try and build something, and push back against all those people. There's people that tell you, yeah, you can absolutely smash it. You can, earn 100,000 a week. Which I've signed up for. I'll be absolutely honest. And just to try and do it your way, there's a lot in that. There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot of invisible, I'd say, scripts and expectations and things that aren't said. And I think oftentimes the things that aren't said are even more powerful than the things that are said. And yeah, I would imagine coming from different cultures, that's just multiplied massively, right? I'm only dealing with the UK, maybe Luxembourg a bit, but that doesn't really sort of come into play. So yeah, if you've got all that background, that must be crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So many things that you say, I deeply resonate with it. Same thing as you. When when I took my decision to transition from this safe job, then at that time my father he passed away. He was not from this world anymore, but he would have not been able to understand that for sure. For him, it was just like a success. From I was the first generation going to university. Then for him was always willing to go to school. He didn't go to school, and then I was graduating and I had a job into a bank. Then for him, he would have not been able to understand. And for me, same as you, by the end, I thought it was just as what we're learning in the society, if I can call it this way. You have a diploma in your pocket, then it's easy. Then from there, you do your career change. And of course, coaching is something different because we're touching the human being. We're touching things that it's not like just like in finance where you just have some competencies. Of course, I don't want to say that you don't have, some talent and etc. that you can choose, but you're not dealing with human. And then I think what you said as well. I went through that because the first year was fantastic. I just did so many things. I achieved so many things, and it looks easy. But of course, then after, long story short, I had my mother and one of my sisters who passed away, and then it stopped me. But again, I had so many times I was adapting because I didn't know what will come next. I didn't have the certainty that it's going to work. I wanted to give up. And I don't know how to explain that, but same as you, there is a life force. There is something potential that is just dormant inside that I always felt. And then it's just stronger, that this inner voice that is keeping telling me that, it's not going to be possible, and that I will never be able to blah, 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 etc. And it's true, it takes courage. It takes courage, but I think in a way, what we do is we are pioneer. We're showing, other people that there is other ways, and it can be your own way with your own terms. But of course, before that, you need to dismantle the wall from the box, as I like to call it, because of course you can't just create from, having a new vision from a sense of old self, if I can say, something that does not even come from yourself. There is so many things that are stopping me that now, that I am able to bring them from the invisibility into visibility. I'm like, okay, it comes from my parents, then it's not even mine, but I absorb it. And, it's just, I just want to keep the food, like the spaghetti, couscous, I just want to keep the nice part, and that's my choice. But there is the limitation. And by the end, I feel like both of my parents, they passed away, but I'm sure they won't probably understand, but deep inside, that's what they want. When they made the move out of their country into a country, it was for the future generation to have an improvement, to have, like being free, and then it's another sense of freedom that probably what they knew, at their level, if I can say like this. But that's freedom, the freedom to be yourself, and to explore and discover your potential. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And being this bridge, you see, because as I said, I used to see that this in between worlds was for me a limitation. And now more and more, and now that I'm starting to find peace in it, I discovering terms that I never knew, like these third culture kids, TCK. Never heard about that. And we're talking even about cultural intelligence. And I was like, really? Then it looks like we are more and more talking about diversity. And in a way, for me, diversity is creating more separation. But by the end, for me, what I'm getting from is more a sense of wholeness. It's a sense of, by the end, we all come from, different world, and that's the beauty of it. This mixity is so beautiful, and there is so many things that when you learn to live with this different world and integrate them into yourself, there is so many other beauty and talent that can be used now today, that we're talking about diversity and etc. Because there is things talent that we develop without even being aware, that can be so useful today.
Yeah, it's really strange you actually mentioned that, because I didn't actually reference it, but I have a friend, Monica Mortensen Clacy, that's her name. I sent her this invite, so hopefully she gets to watch it. She might not, but she wrote this beautiful piece on LinkedIn about being a third culture kid, and it really spoke from the heart. And it was this almost sense of loneliness, or didn't quite fit in, and it was beautifully written. And I've said that she should write more of it. But I love the way that she wrote it. But in terms of me actually understanding how it was, she painted such a beautiful picture. I couldn't quite get the whole thing because I'm from just one place. But then it brought me this awareness of, okay, how difficult must that be when you don't feel that you necessarily fit in, or your experiences. And she grew up in multiple places. Again, her parents were from two different countries, so she has influence from all of those. She's currently in the UK, and she likes languages, and she loves to understand and all of this. And so in the UK, to find someone that speaks another language, is, I know you might find, there's a lot of French people in the UK now and other countries, but she lives in a sort of rural area, and so she sometimes finds it difficult to sort of resonate with some of that, because she has all this wealth of knowledge, this language, and it's almost like this beautiful noise or songs or music in the background in her head. And I think sometimes she, she misses it, because when you go to different countries and you see different cultures, it's um, yeah. And she came over to Luxembourg recently, and we were sitting out having a drink, and she sort of came alive because she could hear all the different accents and conversations in different languages. And it was, yeah, I realized it's yeah, it must be very difficult, especially when you don't have other people to kind of lean on. But I want to sort of transition that into the point of that we also can use that as a strength. We just need to find the right place. So I've mentioned this a number of times. I, years and years ago, when I was in London, worked for one of the banks. And as part of my appraisal, I was told that my voice was very monotone and I didn't have a lot of expression. And they used that not to give me a bonus or a pay rise or a promotion. I can't remember which now. And I came away feeling very dejected by that. And I'd always thought that maybe my voice wasn't great. And so then it was an outside confirmation that this was a problem, almost being penalized financially, which, as a younger person, I really wanted the money. I thought that was something. And it was like, oh, wow. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm being beaten up for that. And then I came to Luxembourg, and then people actually liked my voice, so especially people that maybe were either learning English or were trying to learn English, because actually it was quite measured. I'm quite slow in what how I speak, so people could understand that everything's fairly broken up. It's not too fast. There's not a huge accent behind it, so people actually found it good to speak to me, and they were sort of coming to me, and I was like, oh, maybe I'm just not in the right. I wasn't in the right place, and I remember this sort of moment where I was like, hang on, how can something that I've been told that is really bad and be penalized is actually really good? And it was a very odd moment. I was just like, oh, I'm just not quite in the right place, or I haven't found my audience. And now I think with technology, you can, I'm having these conversations, and if my voice was that bad, people wouldn't be listening, people wouldn't be engaging, and you think, okay, so and it's strange how something that you were told a long time ago can carry through for your whole life, and that's what you believe. And for me, I labelled myself the same way, and it's only when I kind of took that label off. I never really listened to myself that much. I do watch the playbacks and stuff like that, but I don't even focus on that anymore, because it wasn't that weight hanging around my neck and holding me down. And people sort of helped me. Well, they didn't help me, but just by referencing it, I realized, oh, okay, actually this is a skill. And I was like, oh, and now, like you say, this bridge of this ability, and you go, oh, and I feel annoyed that I spent most of my life with this label, but I guess that's the path, right? And through frustration, through coaching, therapy, etc. That's why I'm here today. So it's all, there's always a reason for everything, and so I'm quite glad of it. And it, at least it's a story that I can tell repeatedly on these chats. But like you say, we have these limiting labels or beliefs or identities, but actually dig into that a bit more. That might be an old story that's no longer serving you, and actually it could be your superpower, right?
Yeah, I love this story, and yeah, it made me think exactly the same. For me, for different reason. I felt, I guess, due to this sense of in between world, you have a sense of never being at your place, and listening to you reminds me that even though in Luxembourg, as I said, I felt like a foreigner in the middle of other foreigners. Still, when I arrived, I did not felt as well at my place. I did not feel at my place because of the languages. I knew English was not so good, like for the same reason as people in UK, in France, we're not so good with languages. I knew a bit of Italian, but not good enough, let's say. Then I had only French, and everyone in Luxembourg was talking minimum 4 languages. Then, it's again, it's interesting that wherever you go, this it shows again that you bringing with you this inherited pattern without even being aware. But when you're creating the context for you, to just like when, as you took the decision to shift, to just shift in your career and for in your personal, etc. I think that what it's the time where you can explore what used to be limitation, and you see that by the end there is always a good and a bad, let's say, and again it's always a question of perspective, but it's up to you to create the condition and the context for you, because I can always feel not at my place wherever I go by the end, but it's up to me to make my place. And that's something that it shows that it's this identity is not something fixed. We're not just something that is stay for the rest of our life. We are, of course, defined by our past, and it did impact, etc. We have our root, family, culture, etc. But still, with awareness, we can just step outside of all this sense of limitation, explore, being aware, put things in visibility, and deciding, choosing what we want to keep and creating the context. And that's what happened, I guess, for you, and that's what is happening for me as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting, this word patterns, and I know you've mentioned it quite a few times, and so, but also this awareness. And I think I've always said awareness is like a superpower, because once you're aware of something, then you can do something about it. And I've come across some people that are super aware, and they are absolutely amazingly aware of what's going on with their body, their mind, and that's beautiful when you see it. There are people that say that they're aware, but they're really not. I think they're aware to a certain point, but they're ignoring some things, and I think, oh, okay, they're covering that up with other things. But I think if we can spend a bit of time uncovering what's going on, and that, again, that's not always linear. It doesn't always go, okay, I'm aware of that, now I'm aware of that. And for me, so when I went to therapy, I realized that I had some insecurities, and those insecurities don't always show up in the same situation. They weren't always at work. They were in maybe relationships, or how I viewed myself, or how I showed up, or it can be a whole load of things. And often we can't see the pattern ourselves. And what I liked very much about therapy was it was going there and explaining, and just sort of almost brain dumping, what's going on. And then just having someone sort of just take a moment in such a caring way, and just going, okay, can you see this? Can you see this? And you go, oh, yeah, okay, this is a pattern or a limiting belief or something. And I was like, oh. And that's why I think if you can get to that level of awareness, it's really great, because the things that aren't serving you, you can maybe change. The things that should be serving you, you can lean into, you can adapt, etc. But it all starts with that awareness. But that awareness sometimes is hard to look internally. You often need to go to someone like a therapist or a coach like yourself and go, oh, okay. And it might feel a bit frustrating, because we do live in this world where we want these quick results, have one conversation, everything's solved. But the way I always say this is, I'm 47 now, I've had 47 years of conditioning, of invisible scripts of things, choices and decisions that I've made. And yeah, that's going to take some time. Yeah, you can change certain things very quickly. But you can also, it takes a long time to maybe just peel that off and understand. And so, yeah, it might feel frustrating, but just keep at it. And if you can just do a little bit and a little bit. And I think it definitely helps when there's someone like yourself who's very caring and can see that. And again, we talked about it, but, it's just maybe a little bit ahead and has experienced it and can really resonate with maybe the patterns that, they see in you, that maybe they experienced as well. Because And it's not like holding this spotlight that's, you know, sort of very scary. It can just be like a candle. Look, you know, in a caring way, can you see this? And ultimately, when you can get there, your life's going to be a bit more peaceful in whatever way, your personal life, your professional life, because you're making decisions more from a place of an awareness, and that's how I see it, at least.
Yes, yes. Yeah, totally. I mean, we don't have much time anymore to talk about that. But, for me, even though I was searching for answers, it's only because I had things happening to me that hit me really hard. I think that's the only way humans are ready to change and evolve. When, the pain that we're living through our circumstances, losses, or whatever, transition, that's where we can say, now over, I just want to change something, I don't know why. And that's where we can, that the transformation starts at that moment. I think, after, it's
Yeah,
just like whatever, therapy, coaching, or there is so many, excellent somatic work that can help you going through that. But I think it's really the starting point is like this big clash that makes this, oh, then my soul is hitting the box, and
yeah,
I'm fed up of this box.
yes, yeah. It's I think sometimes I've seen it in my own life. I dislike it has to get to that point, but it has to be almost so painful. You know, it's more painful to stay the same than it is to change, because we are people that don't always like to change. Some people do, but yeah, and in hindsight, I would have liked to have, maybe made healthier decisions in my life earlier on. But sometimes I think that gives us the fuel to change it in such a drastic way. And it is what it is, and these things I often say happen for a reason. um but yeah, it's sometimes a bit painful, and that's why I think I said this in a post earlier today. I don't give advice to people anymore. I think I used to try and give advice, but I think when you're ready for the advice, it lands. It's the same as reading a book. You could read a book today, and then yeah, it was great, and then you read it in 3 years time and your life situation is very different, and then the words have meaning to you and you can internalize it and you can do it then. So, and I realize that everyone's on their own journey. My journey is maybe not about giving advice. It's just about communicating what I'm doing and how things have worked for me, and if that helps someone at some point, then fantastic. But there's no specific person that I'm sort of saying, and I try to avoid giving unsolicited advice. It's not I don't think it's helpful for the other person either. So
No,
yeah.
no, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so fantastic for today. This was
Mm.
absolutely amazing. You have such a kind heart. You have so much wisdom and knowledge in there, and you are so approachable. I would imagine all your clients absolutely love you, because you do everything with a such a genuine place. And I love the fact that you're still discovering, because I think the fact that you're still discovering and working things out makes you even more qualified for what you do, and that you're exploring, because we don't stand still. We're always changing, evolving, we're learning, etc. And I think you are a shining example of that. So thank you very much for your time today, Fadila. The only other thing I want to say is that I saw that you do high rocks.
Yes.
Yes. Now, I
Yeah.
know very little about high rocks, and can you just explain to me what it is and how you got into it? Because why I want to point this out is because you referenced your age earlier on, and I think you look amazing for your age. But I also think it's amazing. It's not something that I've entered into, but I'm partly aware of it. But I'm very, very envious of you being able to do that, and it's very inspiring. So yeah, can you just take a moment just to explain what it was and your competition, etc.?
Yeah, the IROX, then it's a mix of strength and endurance. And just you have to being able to run, because you're running, you have 8 stations where you're pushing weight, you're doing cardio exercise, but in between this station you have to run 1 kilometer. Then you have to run by the end 8 kilometers, and then you start with the 1,000 meter of ski, then you're running, and then after for the woman we pushing a sled of 103 kilogram, and the third station we have to pull 78 kilo. And then after we have to do 80 meters of burpees broad jump. And then after 1 kilometers of rowing machine. Then after we have kettlebell on each side, 16 kilos, then 32 kilos, and we have to do 200 meters. And after we have a 10 kilo sandbag, we have to do 100 meter. And the last station is to hit with a 4 kilo ball. It's, I think, for women, 2 meters 70. We have to, there is a target, and we have to do 100, we have to hit the ball with a squat 100 times. And that the beauty of it is, CrossFit is something that people, the level is very high, but IROX is accessible to, I would say, everyone. Of course, you have to train, that's for sure. But let's say you don't need to be like a pro. Everyone can do it. And it goes until, there is even, I think the Luxembourgish guy did it. He's around almost 80 years old. And then, that's something that I am doing. But to be honest, for me, I use it more as a transformation to face fears. And I always loved sport. And this time, I use it, like more like a project. And then, every time I was training to be, again, we're talking about place, I did not feel really at my place for so many reasons. Your mind can find like 100,000 reasons, like I'm too old, because the people with whom I'm training, they have 20, 30 years, they are 30, 20 years younger than me. Then, it can be a reason why you don't feel at your place. But all that, for me, it helps me to have this objective, to put that on the calendar, to face my fears, to train my courage, to just, learn about myself. And I feel that it does impact as well my coaching, because by the end, what I'm doing, I'm releasing inner barrier, then it helps me in every area of my life. And that's what I did. And this time, I did it so far 3 times. I did 2 double, 1 mixed, which was with my husband, and that was the weight for the men. Then it was as well quite a challenge. But this time I decided to do it single. And that's all the distance that I give you just by myself. And that was a huge challenge, and but very happy that I did it.
So when you started listing off all of those activities, I started sweating myself, and that was just at the beginning of what you were saying, and I was like, hang on, she's keep going, and there's more. That in itself is hugely impressive from a physical ability standpoint. That is absolutely outstanding. What I love about it is that you're facing your fears, and again, that message that you're saying that you're training with people younger than you, and I think we give ourselves this message that we're older, we can't do these things, and oh no, it's not. But no, you are absolute proof that that's zero true, and it's just the messages that we're giving ourselves and limiting beliefs. And I think that's what a perfect way to kind of sum up exactly what we've talked about. So I'm going to be watching your next competition for sure. So
I'm already registered, and
when's that one?
It will be next year in April, and I'm sure I will maybe do others, but double, before. But the single one will be in April in Cologne. And I wanted as well to say that that gives me the idea to call my coaching program "Cross Your Inner Line," because it's a reference to like the finish line. But of course, this is more the inner line. Like during this IROX, I was sick. I had a fever. Then I was not really in my best shape on Friday. And there was the station where we had to do the burpees broad jump. And I could see, I was doing 1 lap and there was still 3 laps. And definitely I was really exploring physically my patterns, my program, that I, without unconsciously, living for so many decades, that was telling me, no, that's not your place, give up, just stop now. And that's what I love about sport, is just, like, you can only go forward. Of course, I could have given up, but I did it. And I feel really that here, this program, something was shifting. I was able to show my brain that there was no danger, and no failure at all. And that's just, that's what inspired me to call this coaching program, Cross Your Inner Line.
That is amazing. I love that story because, yeah, we often try and find excuses for doing things, and I think when you showed your brain, actually, no, I can do this, and when your, default programming's giving you a different message, and and you're challenging that, and then you'll dig into that next time there's a bigger challenge or something like that, and you've got this reference. I think that's such a beautiful thing to do, and you're kind of breaking down your own patterns, right? And you're even
Yes.
doing that in sport, so you're getting healthy by doing that. So
Yes,
what an amazing thing.
Exactly. Yes.
Fantastic. So, Fadila, where should people come and find you? So I obviously found you in LinkedIn. Strangely
Yes.
enough, we obviously are both in Luxembourg, which we didn't know about each other at first. But is that the best place for people to find you, or is there a website? Where should people go?
There is a website, the www.thejoyalifecoaching.com.
Okay.
But they can find all the information onto linking under my name, and Fadila Bouzahzah. I mean, Fadila, it's not so common. Then even on linking, you can easily find me. Yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I repost this, and I'll mention you and put in your website as well. So thank you. Just want to shout out also, there's been some comments from Randall McNeely, Captain Kindman. He's a new follower or connection that I've had on LinkedIn from a conversation I've had, and he's referenced a few times, and he's just said it was a great conversation. He says that it's more painful to stay the same than to change. He said spot on. So it's good that what we've been talking about resonates with Randall. So Randall, thank you very much if you're still watching. I appreciate the comments and the support. Fadila, honestly, it's a real pleasure. My heart is warmed by this conversation with you today. So thank you so much. It was a real pleasure for me.
Thank you, Colin. Same for me.
Okay. Fantastic. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.